Okay, our third and final talk is a patient perspective, and then once this talk is completed by Vanessa, we'll have some Q&A. So Vanessa Evans has been in dialysis for the past 20 years, which is amazing, and lives in Boston, Massachusetts with her husband and 2 sons. She's a passionate advocate for the last 10 years. Vanessa does not let dialysis slow her down. She works full-time as a patient advocate manager for Next Stage, as well as owns a small language company. Vanessa holds a graduate degree from Emerson College, and in her free time, she enjoys traveling and boating with her family and friends.
They saved the best for last, right? So one thing I do want to say that I looked up while you were speaking is Seattle might have been the first with dialysis, but Boston was the first transplant. So just wanted to put that there. I'm a Boston girl, so I have to say that. So I wanted to first thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here and just talk to you a little bit about my journey and a little bit about the innovations and challenge that rise ahead and looking at it from a patient's perspective. We're here today to really talk about patients at the center, and I have to tell you, as a patient and an advocate, that couldn't excite me more. I'm a mother and a wife. I have been a dialysis patient on dialysis 20 years, as you've now heard. And people always ask, well, why have you been on dialysis so long? And the reason is I'm highly sensitized, which means it's very hard for me to get a kidney transplant. And be it that may, I really tried to make the most of my life as it is and try to live, I feel that I live as a person that has a full and fulfilling life even while being a dialysis patient and managing kidney disease. So talking to you a little bit about my journey, I grew up in western suburbs of Boston, and I lived a totally normal, typical life. Very active family. We actually traveled a lot. My mom worked for Harvard. My dad was in the movie industry. We did a lot of traveling. And when I was 12 years old, I went for a normal checkup, as you do for overnight camp or for school, and they found out that I was highly anemic. And so they wanted to find out, what the reasons were, and I was giving anemia medicine, and nothing seemed to help. And so fast forward, I ended up having to have a kidney biopsy. Now remember, I was probably 12 at the time, and I remember thinking kidney biopsy, I had no clue. First of all, I thought it was an autopsy. I didn't understand what the difference was at all. Wasn't that, right? So I had my kidney biopsy, and it turns out that I had nephromycesis, which is scarring of the kidney, so I had cysts that formed around my kidney that didn't allow my kidney to grow. So I had known basically from the time I was 12 that I was going to need a kidney transplant. Being young and being kind of unstoppable at that age, I just thought, oh, I just get a kidney transplant and then life goes on. Like, I really was not, I have to admit, I wasn't really devastated. I really didn't understand what it meant to actually have that kidney transplant. When I was 18, I graduated high school, and a week later, I ended up having a transplant from my mother. That kidney, unfortunately, only lasted me 5.5 years. I will say that in that time, I took full advantage. I went to college. I went away and did a study abroad. And this is kind of an interesting tidbit and kind of why I think we all need to be working together. I remember while I did a study abroad in Spain, and while I was there, I was doing my monthly visits, as we do, as kidney patients do. They check in with their doctor. And I saw the doctor there, and he was very angry at me. Mind you, I speak Spanish fully, so I was able to converse with him. So he says to me, Vanessa, you are on way too much immunosuppressants. We need to lower your immunosuppressants. And I was like, no, we can't lower anything. We have to do what I'm being prescribed. We have to do what the doctor said in Boston. So, this was no social media. I'm aging myself, but there was no social media at this time. There was no cell phone. There was nothing, right? So he was angry at me. He literally walked out of the room, and I remember I actually left that meeting crying, thinking, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. And I had my little call phone that you get to make your international calls, and I'm calling Boston. It was raining. I'm in Sevilla, calling my doctor, hoping that she answers the lab. And, push comes to shove, I didn't lower my medication. She couldn't at that point see me. I was still in abroad for over 6 months, and I felt like I didn't want to change anything with a doctor that was only supposed to be kind of following me. And so I didn't. And a year and a half later, I lost my kidney due to toxicity of high cyclosporin. So, that was a hard lesson learned. And I don't blame anybody on that. I feel that it's a learning moment, and honestly, I feel that it made me who I am, and a stronger person and a more passionate advocate. But it does make me think about going back to, working together and having kind of a team approaches this, whereas, I hear one person saying this and another one saying this, and I'm caught in the middle not really understanding which is the right way to go. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I got back from Spain, and I started a job in the financial industry, which is really funny because I'm not really good at numbers, but somehow I landed a job in finance. My title was Quantitative Research Associate, which was a big title for a person that probably shouldn't have had that job. But anyway, needless to say, I started working in the financial district in Boston. But I wasn't feeling well. I started feeling really, really tired. So I should say that when I first started dialysis, by the way, when I first actually got my transplant, I had no symptoms. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel sick. I wasn't going to the bathroom, more or less. I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have any of the normal symptoms. So when I had my transplant, it all kind of came as a shock. Like I didn't understand all of this. But after, when I started to reject, that's when I started to feel all the symptoms. I was extremely tired all the time. My blood pressure, I think I was running, 210 over like 190. I mean, it was crazy. I was walking around with a really high blood pressure. It was hard for me to motivate to go to work. It was hard for me to really function and do anything. But I was always someone that was always very motivated and really felt like, well, I'm not, all my friends are working. We all just graduated college. I'm not going to be the sick one. Like that wasn't the route that I wanted to take. So I was told that I needed to start dialysis. And I have to say again, nobody told me what dialysis was going to be like. I, again, had no clue what it was. So they did tell me that it was going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, Monday I can go at like 10 in the morning, and Wednesday I can do 3. Like, I didn't understand that it was this regimented schedule that I was going to have to follow for the rest of my life until I got a transplant. I did not get that at all. I did not understand what a fistula was. I had no clue what it was. I know I got one in, but I didn't understand that like needles were going to be put in me. I was never told about PD, about peritoneal dialysis at all. Had no clue about that option. I told Barbara nobody talked to me about any kind of clinical trial. Nothing. I was really going, and not for anything, but I come from an educated family. I'm an educated person. I'm in Boston, which is, a fabulous medical resource where we have wonderful doctors, and but that was the reality of what it is, right? That was the reality. So I started doing dialysis in center 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I tried to keep my quantitative research associate job, but I couldn't because I had to get back for dialysis. I had to be back in a suburb because it was close to my house and I was working in town, so it would take me like 45 minutes to an hour to get back and forth. I had to get back to do dialysis. Plus, I just really wasn't feeling well. I mean, that's the truth. I wasn't feeling well. So I ended up quitting my job, and I ended up starting dialysis. Now, if you ask any dialysis patient who is at the age that I was probably in 20s, do I want to quit my job and be here 3 days a week and go on disability? The answer would be no. That's not what I was looking to do at all. But I really wasn't given a choice. I mean, I really didn't know what else there was to do, and I wasn't given options or spoke to anybody that could tell me anything different. So that was the life that I led. I will mention one factor that I think is so important. I had a really strong family support. And I think that dialysis comes down to what I call the 4 F's. So one is friends and family, having that support system. The other is the frequency of the treatment, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in general. the flexibility of the treatment, and the last one is the freedom. And these all kind of coincide and go together. But highlighting on friends and family, I really have to credit my mother, who did not let me just sit in a dialysis unit and be this person that was on disability. I mean, she gave me some lead time. She let me transition, and she, gave me the time. But she said to me, Vanessa, once you start dialysis, I get that maybe you can't get a job, but you're going to volunteer. You're going to do something. You're not sitting around waiting to do dialysis. And so I started by volunteering, and as I said, I speak Spanish fluently, so I went and I worked with an immigrant population, helping them with immigration and things like that. And then I started to think, well, what is it that I'm going to do while I'm doing dialysis? Because I need to work, and I'm not just going to be sitting around doing nothing. So in college, my major was political science, and my minor was Spanish. And so, as I said, speaking Spanish fluently, I happened to know a friend that worked at a local parochial school who was teaching Spanish. And I called her, and I'm like, do you guys know if you need any other Spanish teachers? And she said, yeah, actually, we do. We're looking for a part-time person. And so I was able to transition and start teaching Spanish, which started a whole other part of my life. But it was because I was motivated, right? And I was able to do that. And it was close to where I lived, so I was able to kind of go do dialysis and then continue working. And I did that for about 8 years. Within this time, I met my husband. We got married. And I remember when we were looking for our house, a big transition for dialysis patients is leaving your unit or leaving your doctor or moving away from what you know. And I had to do that because my husband didn't live near where I was. And so, I was like, okay, well, I'll live where you are, but here are a couple of things. I need to find a dialysis unit that is going to be close to where I am. And I need to hopefully find a job that's close to that dialysis unit to where I am. And I'm lucky to say that everything kind of did work itself out. But when we started to have a family, I started to think, well, I should say when we wanted to start a family, I started to think, well, there's got to be a better way. Like, I can't keep going to dialysis 3 days a week, because although I was on the machine 3 hours, we all know, everybody that's in a dialysis world know that it's not just 3 hours, right? There's time getting there, you're waiting to get on the machine, you're waiting to get off the machine, you're holding your sites, and then it's how you feel. And I don't remember, somebody was talking about the clothes from a size 8 to a 14 or something. I can relate to that in center, because when I was in center and I was a teacher, I was the best teacher Tuesday through Friday. I was a really good teacher. I was really interactive. I think my kids really loved the classes. But Mondays, I wasn't such a good teacher. And that would be because I hadn't had treatment since Saturday, all day Sunday, and really all day Monday, because I didn't go to my treatment until afterwards. So I would always well, actually, they probably love me on a Monday because I'd put up a movie or do something where we weren't working as hard, right? But that's no way to live. And I started to think, how can I find a better way? Once again, nobody was knocking on my door or telling me anything about home therapies at all. And to this day, I honestly don't remember how I even found out about home therapies. I think I did a Google search similar to my transplant thing that I just did now, and just found out about home hemodialysis. And I have to tell you, it took me over a year to transfer. I was really, really scared. I was the girl that went in, put my arm out, and turned the other way. I didn't look at them putting needles in. I did have them look at I always made them turn the machine because I wanted to count down how many hours and time was left. Other than that, I wasn't necessarily too engaged or informed. And so the idea of transitioning over to being able to do home dialysis was completely overwhelming. I was super scared of the needles. I was super scared of what if something happens at home? What's gonna, here there's people that are gonna help me. What am I gonna do if I'm home? And then the other piece of it was, the overwhelming piece. So when I did dialysis, I would go and I left dialysis in the center. It wasn't part of my home. My husband, although he was involved, he wasn't really involved. He was working. I drove myself to dialysis and back, right? So what was it going to look like in my home? There were so many questions. And then the last piece of it really is, I don't even like doing dialysis 3 days a week. Why you think I'm going to want to do 5 to 6 to 7? You know, nobody wants to do more dialysis. So these were a lot of obstacles and barriers that I had to get over. But at the same time, I knew that there had to be a change. So when my husband and I decided to have a family, we did it via surrogate. So our kids are biologically ours. I could do a whole other talk on surrogacy and how that went to. Oprah would love me. I've got lots of good conversation starters. But we had our first son, who's now 13 years old, and total teenager and disinterested in everything I'm doing. But the point of my story is I just felt like I was never with him. Like I was always running to go to dialysis, and I was never spending the time with him. And I thought, what am I going to do? So as I said, I looked into dialysis, and I finally made that transition. Remember that I'm working, teaching Spanish as well as I just had my newborn son, so my son was born in December. I was working full-time. And then I decided it'd be a great idea to start training to do home dialysis. So, I mean, it was craziness at my house. There's a newborn baby. We're learning how to do home dialysis. It was extremely overwhelming. And there were many times that I wanted to quit. And I wanted to say, this is like way too much for me. And I don't know, what did I get myself into? Like, I can't even imagine. But I want to talk to you about the clinical outcomes of what it was. Within the first week of me doing dialysis more frequently, I got off all my blood pressure pills. And I want to talk to you that I was a compliant patient. I was the one that I was watching. I would never be doing this, by the way. I was watching what I drank. I was watching what I ate. But I was able to come off all my blood pressure pills. You know, I was able to have better physical health. I had more energy. I would do my treatment. I would be like, yeah, you want to go for a walk? Oh, the baby's crying. I need to stay up. I need to work more hours. I'm correcting papers. Whatever it is, it completely changed my life. Completely changed my life. So I want to talk a little bit about innovation. And, you know, we're here today and we're talking so much about what's going to happen in the future. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited about everything that you mentioned with clinical trials and wearable kidneys and artificial kidneys. And, I mean, so excited because I hope that I benefit from that. And when I think of the 5 to 10 years, I'm like, well, I've already done 20, so what's another 5 to 10? Not that many, right, is what I think about when I look at it. But I still think that we are doing our patients a disservice, and I talked a little about this the other day, when they're not knowing actually what we have right now for some of the technology that is actually available. We have kind of this unutilized technology. So even last week, I went to New York University, and I was being worked up for transplant evaluation, and I'm in the lobby with 5 other patients. We're all waiting to be worked up. And 3 of us are doing some kind of home therapy, whether it's PD or home dialysis. And the 2 other patients that were there, they didn't even know about any kind of home dialysis. They had no clue what PD was. They had no clue what home hemodialysis was. So what were these patients doing? I walked into it. They were already giving, if you will, like a lobby day. They were talking to the patients and telling them about the technology and having them informed. So I'm hopeful that we are kind of bringing the message out to patients and knowing that, you know, right now we have this technology. Is it the best? Maybe there's a future ahead on where we can go, but I'm hopeful that we're getting to those patients and we're telling them kind of what is there? What are your options? I'm all about patient education. All of us go through a life path. And we go through different stages in that life path. And so part of that is knowing what is the right stage for you at that moment. Perhaps it's in center at one point. Perhaps it's going to be transplant, and hopefully that transplant will last 20 plus years of your lifetime. Then maybe it's doing home dialysis, right? Doing PD dialysis or doing home hemodialysis. But the core of it is the education. And that's the piece that I think we need to bridge together. And we need to think about that with you guys. We're all stakeholders in this together. And I mean, the 5 to 10 year thing is good, but can we do it more? What can we do? We have patient advocates in the room. Can I ask my patient advocates and caregivers to stand up? Do you mind standing up for a minute? If you're a patient advocate, if you're a caregiver, okay. So look around here right now. First of all, yes. Thank you. Okay, you guys can sit. But what I wanted to demonstrate is we have a group of engaged patient advocates that are willing, ready, and able to help all of you get this act and this plan together. Social media right now is a huge place where we can reach out to patients. They are more engaged than ever before. I'm seeing it all the time. I know that patients reach out to me all the time asking me questions about dialysis, asking me questions about traveling with dialysis. Even while I was here, I got a couple of how do I travel with my machine and things. We are this group of patients that are willing, able, and ready to be engaged and informed and to help you succeed, because it's not only in your best interest, but it's our best interest. So I'm hoping that we can work together and collaborate and really make a difference so that next year at this time when we come, we've actually done something and we're not just talking about it anymore. So thank you for your time.